I always thought I had a pretty average, decent life. 12 years married to a woman I loved, a comfortable home, steady jobs, no major drama. That is how it has been for me and Megan. She has always been thoughtful, the kind of wife who makes sure you have lunch ready when you are running late and texts you a random, "I miss you," in the middle of the day. Honestly, I used to think I was one of the lucky ones. That was until about a month ago, when Megan dropped something on me that I never saw coming. We were having dinner at home, nothing special, just the two of us like any other weeknight. Megan had made spaghetti, and we were talking about work and the usual stuff. And then, right in the middle of twirling pasta on her fork, she casually says, "Have you ever thought about opening up our marriage?" I choked on my food. I swear, if she had told me she was quitting her job and joining the circus, I would have been less surprised. I stared at her for a second, trying to figure out if she was joking or serious. But her face was perfectly calm. No nervous twitch, no awkward laugh. She really meant it. "What?" I finally managed to ask, thinking maybe I had misunderstood her. "You know, like other couples do it sometimes," she said, looking down at her plate as if she were talking about trying a new recipe. "They still love each other, but they see other people, too. It is just something I have been thinking about." The room felt colder all of a sudden. This was the woman I had been with for more than a decade. We shared everything, our lives, our struggles, our triumphs. And here she was, out of the blue, bringing up something like this. It felt like the ground had shifted under my feet. For a moment, I did not know how to respond. My brain was struggling to make sense of the words she had just spoken. This was Megan, my wife of 12 years, the woman who could not even keep a secret about what she got me for my birthday, much less something like this. I pushed my plate aside, suddenly not hungry anymore. "You're serious about this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm even though my stomach was doing flips. Megan shrugged, keeping her eyes fixed on her half-eaten spaghetti. "It's just an idea. I've been thinking about it and I wanted to know what you thought." She was talking like it was no big deal, as if she had just suggested redecorating the living room. "What made you start thinking about it?" I pressed. I needed to understand where this was coming from because nothing in our relationship had prepared me for this. She paused, twirling her fork around a single strand of spaghetti. "Well, you know, some of my friends have been talking about it, and it got me wondering if maybe it's something that could work for us. I mean, we've been together a long time, Jack. Maybe it would keep things exciting." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Exciting? Was she really that bored with our life together? The way she was talking made me feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to jump off into something dangerous, while I was stuck on solid ground, struggling to catch up. But I did not want to make a scene. Not yet. I decided to hear her out, even though my gut was telling me this conversation was going in a direction that I was not going to like. "Have you been unhappy?" I asked quietly. "Is there something you're not telling me?" Megan finally looked up, her blue eyes meeting mine with a mixture of guilt and determination. "No, not unhappy," she said quickly. "It's not like that. I still love you, Jack. I just think this might be something new, something different." Different. That word stuck in my head, ringing like a bell. I tried to wrap my mind around it. Megan was the last person I would have ever expected to want something like this. Our marriage had always been solid, or so I thought. "You don't have to decide right now," she added, leaning back in her chair. "I just wanted to bring it up. We don't have to do it if you're not comfortable." There it was. That little escape hatch she was offering me, like she was trying to soften the blow. But the damage was already done. The fact that she had even brought it up in the first place made me question everything I thought I knew about us. I nodded slowly, not trusting myself to say much more. "Yeah, I'll think about it." But in the back of my mind, a dark thought started creeping in. What if this was not just about an idea? What if she was already seeing someone else? After that dinner, things felt different between us. Megan acted like the conversation had never happened, going about her day as if everything was normal. But for me, there was this constant buzzing in the back of my mind. Every time I looked at her, I kept wondering if I was missing something. Was she already thinking about someone else? Was she planning something behind my back? I hated that these thoughts were creeping in, but I could not stop them. At night, while Megan was asleep beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying our conversation over and over in my head. What if this was just a passing thought for her? Something she picked up from her friends and nothing more? But what if it was more than that? The questions swirled around my brain, making it impossible to rest. I thought about her friends, specifically Jenny and Lisa, who she spent a lot of time with lately. I had met them a few times at parties or get-togethers, and they always struck me as the type who liked to push boundaries. They were both younger, wild in a way Megan never was. When we got married, Megan was the steady one, the one who kept me grounded. But now, maybe hanging out with them had given her some new ideas. I started to pay closer attention to Megan's behavior. It was subtle at first. Her phone always seemed to be in her hand, even when we were just sitting on the couch watching TV. She would get messages late at night, and I would hear the soft ping, but when I asked who it was, she would just smile and say, "Oh, just Jenny being her usual self." I tried to shrug it off. I really did. But that sinking feeling in my gut kept telling me something was not right. And it was not long before I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, Megan was already crossing a line I had not seen. One night, after she had fallen asleep, I found myself standing in front of her laptop, which she had left on the kitchen counter. My heart pounded in my chest as I debated what to do. Was I really going to snoop on my wife? I had never been that guy before. I always trusted Megan. But now, I felt like I was being pushed into this shadowy place where trust was starting to crumble. I opened the laptop, my fingers trembling. It was password protected. Of course. But I knew her well enough to guess her password. It was our anniversary date. As soon as I typed it in, the screen unlocked. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me, but I pressed forward. I clicked through her emails, her social media, trying to find anything that might explain why she had suggested an open marriage. But there was nothing. No secret messages. No flirtatious emails. Nothing that pointed to infidelity. For a moment, I felt a strange sense of relief. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I had overreacted. But then again, my gut still gnawed at me, whispering that something was off. I just had not found it yet. I closed the laptop quietly and went back to bed, lying there in the dark, wondering if Megan was hiding something that could not be found on a screen. In the days following my late-night snooping, I tried to act normal. I wanted to believe that I had imagined it all, that Megan was just curious and not actually acting on anything. But the more I tried to convince myself, the more obvious it became that things were not the same between us. Something had shifted. Megan seemed distracted. When we talked, her responses were shorter, like her mind was somewhere else. We would sit together at dinner, and she would scroll through her phone more than usual. Even when she was physically present, it felt like her attention was somewhere else, with someone else. It was a Friday night when everything started to spiral. Megan was getting ready to go out with Jenny and Lisa. They had been planning this girls' night for a while, and I had no problem with it. I wanted her to have fun, to enjoy herself, but that nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach would not go away. As she stood in front of the mirror, putting on lipstick, I casually asked, "Where are you guys going tonight?" "Oh, just a bar downtown," she said, not looking away from her reflection. "It'll be fun. We'll probably get home late. Do you want me to pick you up if you've had too much to drink?" She laughed softly. "No, don't worry about it. We'll Uber back." There was something in her tone, a dismissiveness that rubbed me the wrong way. I told myself I was being paranoid, that this was just a regular night out with friends, but the seed of doubt had already taken root. After she left, I found myself pacing the house, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. I thought about texting her just to check in, but I stopped myself. I did not want to be that guy, the jealous husband sitting at home, glued to his phone, imagining the worst. So, instead, I tried to distract myself. I turned on the TV, opened a beer, but no matter what I did, my mind kept drifting back to Megan. As the night wore on, I could not resist the urge any longer. I picked up my phone and texted her, "How's your night going?" I stared at the screen, waiting for a response. Minutes passed, then an hour, and nothing. I told myself she was just busy having fun, that she would text me back when she could. But that voice in the back of my head kept whispering, what if she is not with her friends at all? It was close to midnight when she finally responded, "Hey, sorry. Just busy. Having fun. Love you. I wanted to believe it. I really did. But something about that message felt off. It was too generic, too perfect. And the fact that it had taken her so long to reply only made my suspicions worse. Unable to sleep, I sat on the couch, watching the hours tick by. Megan did not come home until nearly 3 a.m., and when she did, she was unusually quiet. She slipped into the bedroom without saying much, claiming she was too tired to talk. I lay awake in the dark, feeling her presence next to me, but somehow, she felt further away than ever. That night, as I stared at the ceiling in the dark, I knew something was wrong. I just did not know how deep it went. The weekend passed without much conversation. Megan spent most of it either glued to her phone or making excuses to leave the house. Errands, seeing friends, anything that kept her away. I tried to act like everything was fine, but inside, I was restless, my mind working overtime to piece together what might be going on. Sunday night, after we finished dinner, I decided it was time to bring it up again. I could not let this feeling fester any longer. As Megan cleared the dishes, I leaned against the kitchen counter, watching her. "So, I've been thinking about that conversation we had," I said carefully, keeping my tone neutral. She glanced at me but did not stop what she was doing. "About what?" "About the open marriage thing." Megan froze for just a second, her hand hovering over the sink before she continued washing the plates. "Oh, that." "Yeah, that," I echoed. "I've been trying to wrap my head around it. I mean, you just dropped it out of nowhere and now, I don't know. I feel like we're not even talking about it." She sighed, wiping her hands on a towel before turning to face me. "I told you, Jack. It was just something I wanted to discuss. It's not like I was demanding anything. You said you'd think about it, so I've been giving you space." Her words made sense on the surface, but her expression told a different story. She looked tense, almost defensive, as if she was expecting me to accuse her of something. I was not ready to throw accusations around, but I was also not ready to let it go. "I know, but something feels off, Megan," I said, trying to tread lightly. "It's like you're not really here anymore. I can't shake the feeling that you're hiding something from me." Megan's eyes flicked down to the floor for a moment before she crossed her arms over her chest. "I'm not hiding anything. I've just been busy, okay? My friends are going through stuff. Work has been crazy. Life gets hectic sometimes." It was a reasonable answer, except it did not explain the distance I felt between us. It did not explain why my gut was screaming at me that something was wrong. "Busy or not," I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice, "we haven't really talked about us. I mean, do you even want to be with me anymore? Because that's what it feels like. You're here, but you're not really here." Her face softened for a moment, and she took a step toward me, her hand reaching out to touch my arm. "Of course I still want to be with you, Jack. I love you. I wouldn't have brought up the open marriage if I didn't." That threw me off. "Wait, what?" Megan gave a small, sad smile. "I only brought it up because I didn't want to lose you. I thought maybe if we tried something new, it would help us stay connected." Stay connected? The more she talked, the less sense it made. How would opening our marriage make us closer? But the way she said it, with that genuine tone, almost made me believe she was telling the truth. Almost. I nodded, not wanting to push any further just yet. "All right. I'll keep thinking about it." Megan smiled weakly and went back to cleaning up, as if that conversation had put everything to rest. But I knew better. Something was still wrong, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt like this was not just about us growing apart. There was something else at play, something Megan was not telling me, and I was going to find out what. By the following week, I could not shake the feeling that something was slipping through my fingers, and Megan was not giving me the whole picture. I had gone from feeling confused and hurt to becoming obsessed with finding out what was really going on. Her sudden proposal of an open marriage had thrown me off balance, but now, it seemed like there was more hiding beneath the surface. I could not ignore it any longer. One evening, after Megan had gone to bed early, claiming she had a headache, I sat in the living room, staring blankly at the TV, my mind elsewhere. I kept replaying the last few weeks over and over, trying to pinpoint where everything had started to go wrong. What had changed? And why did it feel like she was slipping away right before my eyes? The laptop was sitting on the coffee table, just like it had been that night I checked it. I knew I had found nothing suspicious before, but something in me snapped. I needed answers. Megan had been so careful, no incriminating texts, no odd emails. But that only made me more determined to find out if she was really hiding something. I opened the laptop again, feeling that same rush of guilt. The screen flickered to life, and I started digging through her browser history. It was mostly mundane stuff, shopping sites, social media, a couple of articles. But then I found something that made my heart skip a beat. A private browser window. She had been using incognito mode. I clicked it open, and my stomach clenched. Megan had been visiting online forums about open marriages and polyamorous relationships. It was not just a passing curiosity. It was something she had been actively researching. There were posts from months ago, long before she had brought it up to me. She had been planning this for a while. I kept scrolling, feeling sicker with each click. She had left comments on some of the posts, under an anonymous username, of course. But I knew it was her. She had been asking for advice about how to introduce the idea of an open marriage to a traditional partner. She wanted to know how to convince her husband, me, to go along with it. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. This was not just some spontaneous idea. This was something she had been building toward for months. And I could not shake the feeling that she was not doing it alone. I kept digging, desperate to find more. I searched her messages again, looking for any hidden clues. That was when I noticed something odd, a gap in her text history with Jenny, her closest friend. It was subtle, but there were missing messages, like parts of a conversation had been deleted. My blood ran cold. What if Jenny was not just a friend? What if she had been helping Megan all along, covering for her, encouraging her? The weight of it all crashed down on me. This was no longer about Megan being curious or looking to spice things up. This was about betrayal. I knew I was not crazy for feeling the way I did. Something had been off for a long time, and now I was starting to see the cracks in the facade. But I was not ready to confront her. Not yet. I needed more. I needed to be sure. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling, and sat back on the couch. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of suspicion, unable to catch my breath. If Megan had been hiding this, what else was she keeping from me? How far had she already gone? The next few days felt like a waiting game. I had become hyper-aware of everything Megan did, every glance at her phone, every time she left the house without a clear reason. I was looking for any sign that would confirm my suspicions, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came to the surface. On Thursday evening, Megan said she was going to Jenny's for another girls' night. My gut twisted, the same way it had before. She was dressed casually, nothing too fancy, but the way she carefully applied her makeup and took extra time in front of the mirror struck me as odd. She was going to see Jenny, right? Do you need me to drop you off? I asked casually, trying to hide my growing suspicion. No, I'll just drive myself. Thanks though, she said, flashing me a quick smile that felt far too practiced. I'll probably be late, so don't wait up. The moment she walked out the door, I grabbed my keys and followed her. I had no real plan, just a deep need to know where she was really going. I kept a distance, my heart pounding as I tailed her car through the city streets. I half expected her to head toward Jenny's house, but when she took a different route, my stomach dropped. She pulled into a parking lot outside a restaurant. Not some low-key bar or dive, but a nicer place. The kind of place we used to go to for date nights. I parked a few spaces down, my palms sweaty on the steering wheel. Was she meeting someone here? I watched as Megan got out of the car and glanced around, as if she was checking to see if anyone was watching. She then walked quickly toward the entrance, her heels clicking on the pavement. I waited a few minutes before following her inside, keeping my head down as I entered the dimly lit restaurant. I spotted her almost immediately. She was sitting in a booth near the back, and across from her was not Jenny, but a man I did not recognize. He was tall, dressed in a sharp button-down shirt, his posture relaxed as he leaned forward to talk to her. The way Megan smiled at him, the way her hand brushed his across the table, it was all I needed to see. My chest tightened as I stood frozen at the entrance, trying to process what I was witnessing. This was not just a casual dinner. This was something else entirely. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Megan was not just thinking about an open marriage. She was already living it. I slipped back outside before she could see me, my mind racing. The reality of what I had just seen hit me like a ton of bricks. Megan had been lying to me for weeks, maybe months. Everything she had said about her friends and wanting to keep things exciting was just a cover for what she had already been doing behind my back. I sat in my car for a long time, staring blankly out the windshield, trying to make sense of it all. The woman I had trusted for 12 years had betrayed me in the worst way possible. And the worst part? She had been careful. Too careful. She had not left a trace because she never thought I would follow her. Never thought I would dig deep enough to uncover her secret. But now I knew. And there was no turning back from it. The drive home felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. I kept seeing Megan's face in my mind, the way she smiled at that man, the way her hand had brushed his so effortlessly, like this was normal for her. All the suspicions that had been eating at me were now confirmed. She was cheating on me. There was no other explanation for what I had seen. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my anger was simmering just beneath the surface. I did not want to explode, but I knew I could not sit on this any longer. She would be home soon, and when she walked through that door, everything would change. The life we had built over the last 12 years was about to shatter into pieces. I paced around the living room, trying to figure out what I was going to say. Part of me wanted to throw all the evidence in her face. The secret forum posts, the missing texts, the fact that I had followed her to the restaurant and watched her meet another man. But another part of me just felt empty, like I had already lost her the moment she brought up the idea of an open marriage. It was after midnight when I heard Megan's car pull into the driveway. My heart pounded as I watched the headlights sweep across the living room window, and a second later, the front door creaked open. She stepped inside, looking tired but content, as if she had just come back from an ordinary night out with friends. "Hey," she said softly, kicking off her shoes. "Sorry I'm so late. We stayed out longer than I thought." I stood there, arms crossed, staring at her. The anger that had been building inside me was boiling over, but I did my best to keep my voice steady. "You were not with Jenny tonight?" Megan froze, her hand halfway to her purse. She turned to look at me, her eyes widening just a fraction. "What are you talking about?" "I followed you," I said, my voice cold. "I saw you at the restaurant. With him." Her face drained of color. For a moment, she just stood there, speechless, her mouth opening and closing like she was trying to find the right words. But the guilt was written all over her face. She knew she was caught. "Jack, it's not what you think," she said finally, taking a step toward me. I laughed bitterly. "Not what I think. You were having dinner with another man. You've been lying to me for weeks, maybe even longer. And you expect me to believe it's not what I think?" Megan's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to touch my arm, but I pulled away. "Please let me explain," she begged. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I snapped. "No, Megan, it's actually pretty simple. You've been cheating on me. You've been seeing someone else, lying to my face, and then coming home to me like nothing's wrong." Tears streamed down her cheeks now, and she wiped at them furiously, as if she was trying to keep herself together. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I was going to tell you, but I didn't know how." I shook my head in disbelief. "When you brought up the open marriage, that was just your way of easing me into it, wasn't it? You wanted to keep seeing him, but you didn't want to feel guilty about it." She nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, but I didn't. It didn't start off like this. We were just friends at first, I swear. And then, I don't know, it got out of hand." I stared at her, feeling a mix of anger and heartbreak that I could barely contain. "So you thought asking for an open marriage would make it okay? That I'd just go along with it, so you could keep cheating without any consequences?" She sobbed harder, her hands trembling as she clutched her purse to her chest. "I didn't want to hurt you, Jack. I love you. I really do. But I don't know how to fix this." My heart ached hearing those words, but I knew the truth now. This was not something that could be fixed. Megan had made her choice, and it had destroyed everything between us. "I don't want to hear it," I said quietly. "I want a divorce." Her head shot up, her tear-streaked face full of panic. "No, please. Don't say that. We can work through this. I made a mistake, but I still love you. We can go to counseling, we can." "I'm done," I interrupted, my voice hard and final. "You made your decision, and now I'm making mine." The days after that confrontation felt like I was living in someone else's life. The home I had shared with Megan for over a decade now felt cold, hollow, like it belonged to strangers. I moved into the guest room, leaving our bedroom to her, but even that was not enough space to escape the tension that hung between us. Megan tried everything to get me to reconsider. She apologized endlessly, told me how much she loved me, and promised it had not gone too far with the guy she had been seeing. She insisted that it had been an emotional affair, that she had not slept with him, but I could not believe her anymore. Whether she had slept with him or not was irrelevant now. The betrayal was too deep, too raw. Every time I saw her, every time she tried to talk to me, all I could picture was her sitting across from that man, smiling at him like she used to smile at me. I could not get the image out of my head, and I did not want to hear her excuses. She had broken something in me that could not be fixed. One evening, she sat down next to me on the couch, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. "Jack, please," she whispered. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy, work on our marriage. I don't want to lose you." I stared at the TV, my jaw clenched. "Megan, it's over. I told you that. There's no going back." Her voice broke as she reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I love you. I was stupid. I made a mistake. But I love you." "Love?" I laughed bitterly, finally turning to face her. "You don't cheat on someone you love. You don't lie to their face and then come home and act like nothing's wrong. That's not love, Megan. You don't even understand what you've done, do you?" She started crying again, but this time I did not feel any sympathy. I could not afford to. I had spent years trusting her, believing in us, and now I felt like I had wasted those years on someone I no longer recognized. "I thought about it," I said, my voice hard, "about giving you another chance. I really did. But then I realized something. I can't live like this. I can't look at you and not see what you did. And even if we went to therapy, even if we tried to work through it, I would never trust you again. Do you understand that? It's gone." Her sobs filled the room, and for a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered what had led us here. She had made her choice, and now we were both living with the consequences. "I'll move out," she said finally, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I know I can't stay here like this, but, Jack, please, can we just talk to someone? One last try?" I shook my head. "I've already talked to a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce." She gasped, like the final blow had just been dealt. I had not told her about the lawyer until now. I wanted to wait until I was absolutely sure, and after days of sleepless nights, I knew I had made the right decision. Megan stood up, pacing the room as if she was trying to make sense of what was happening. "This can't be it," she muttered. "This can't be how it ends." "It ended the minute you decided to lie to me," I said coldly. "I don't care if you didn't sleep with him. You betrayed me, and that's enough." She collapsed onto the couch, her body shaking with sobs, but I was done. I had given her the benefit of the doubt once before, when she first brought up the idea of an open marriage. I had even checked her phone and computer, hoping to find nothing, hoping I was wrong. But now I knew that it had been going on long before I found out, and I could not pretend anymore. I stood up, feeling an odd sense of calm wash over me. "I'll pack my things tomorrow," I said. "You can have the house. I don't want anything from you." Megan looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "Jack, don't. Please. We can start over." I shook my head slowly. "No, Megan. We can't." I walked out of the room, leaving her sobbing on the couch. I knew there was no point in dragging this out any longer. The love I had for her was gone, replaced by a dull ache that I knew would take time to heal. But I also knew that this was the only way forward. I had to let her go. I had to let us go. The next morning, I packed my bags. It was surreal, gathering up the pieces of a life I had spent over a decade building with Megan, only to watch it fall apart in a matter of days. I could hear her moving around the house, her steps quiet, like she was afraid to disturb me. But there was no need for her to tiptoe around anymore. We both knew what was coming. As I zipped up my suitcase, I paused for a moment, looking around the guest room. It felt strange to think that this was it. All the memories, all the shared moments, the laughter, the quiet mornings, and the late-night conversations. They were all part of a life that no longer existed. Megan had taken something from me when she betrayed me, something I could never get back. She came to the door as I was leaving, standing there in her robe, her face pale and drawn from lack of sleep. Her eyes were red from crying, but she did not say anything. Maybe she had run out of words. Or maybe she knew that nothing she said now could change what had already been set in motion. "I'll be at a hotel for a while," I said flatly, not looking at her directly. "Once the paperwork is sorted, we can figure out the rest." Megan opened her mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. She just nodded slowly, her hands trembling as she clutched the edges of her robe. There was so much I wanted to say, so many things I could have thrown back at her, but in the end, what was the point? I left without looking back. I walked out of the house, the same house where we had built a life together, and stepped into the cool morning air. The weight of it all was crushing, but at the same time, there was a strange sense of relief. I had made my decision. There was no going back now. As I drove away, my mind raced with thoughts of what came next. Part of me wondered if I had made the right choice. If maybe, just maybe, there was a way to salvage what was left of our marriage. But that thought passed quickly. The trust was gone, and without that, there was nothing to build on. No matter how much I had loved Megan, we were done. But the road ahead was not as clear as I hoped it would be. I kept thinking about Megan's last plea for counseling, her desperation in trying to save what we had, even after the damage had been done. There was a time when I would have fought for us, would have given anything to keep our marriage alive. But now, I was not sure if there was anything left worth saving. And yet, as the miles stretched out in front of me, I could not help but wonder, was this really the end? Or was there a part of me still holding on to the possibility of a different outcome? The questions lingered in my mind, unanswered, as I drove into the uncertainty of what came next.